Welcome to another episode of Without Regret, the podcast. In this episode, we explore the transformative power of self-love and mindfulness with Dr. Joy Bracey. I'm your host, Tamara, and I'm excited for the privilege of diving into Dr. Joy Bracey's inspiring journey. With a doctorate in executive leadership and a master's in counseling, Dr. Bracey's career path has been nothing short of remarkable. From her early days in leadership roles in the hospitality industry to her current position as president and CEO of a nonprofit addiction treatment and mental health agency, she has dedicated herself to serving others and spreading the message of self-love and mindfulness. Join us as we delve into Dr. Joy Bracey's experiences, insights, and wisdom. From her work with vulnerable women and children in New Orleans to her role as an Adjunct Professor of Self-Awareness at Teachers College, Columbia University, Dr. Bracey's journey is a testament to the transformative power of embracing authenticity and letting go of the inner critic. So grab your headphones and get ready to be inspired. Welcome to Without Regret, where we believe that true freedom begins with loving yourself unconditionally. Okay. Hi, can I call you Dr. Joy?
Yes, that would be great.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining and being here with me today. So I think there's a couple of things, we had a little conversation. So I'm going to let you decide where you want to start based on what we've already discussed.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably good to start with who I am and I don't know, a little bit of my background, maybe, so people know where I'm coming from, I guess.
That would be great.
Yeah. So I am Joy Bracey. I am a lot of people, my friends and stuff call me Dr. Joy, or Joy is totally fine. My students call me Dr. Bracey. I am the CEO, longtime CEO of a nonprofit addiction and mental health facility. I also, aside from that, in addition to that, I teach self-love and self-healing and self-awareness online in workshops, retreats, and to master's degree students with Teachers College, Columbia University. Let's see. I am the mother of 4, single mom. I've been working in the addiction field for 20 years. I've had a long, history. I've lived most of my life in New Orleans. And really, I jokingly say that I was preparing for my doctorate my whole life, because I was, in a family with addiction and poverty and some struggles. I think like a lot of people, it wasn't easy. And growing up in the 1970s and 80s. And overcoming that and becoming who I am today has been just a huge lift. And, a long road.
I can 100% relate to all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having said that, lots and lots of great, wonderful experience here, which I'm trying to figure out which way to go first.
Oh, and I didn't even mention the easy way out.
Oh yeah, your podcast.
Yeah. So I started a podcast because I was accomplishing all this stuff in my life, but I was 337 pounds. For my whole adult life, I was struggling with obesity. I had lost weight many times and gained it all back many times. And finally written off weight loss. I was embracing body positivity and my curves, and I really vowed I would never lose weight again. And then I hit my late 40s and things started to change health-wise, where I couldn't continue on the way that I was. I knew I could see that I was headed to some really uncomfortable places. And so I knew that I had to figure it out once and for all, and that I couldn't I knew how to lose weight. I was an expert at losing weight, but I couldn't do it the way that I was an expert at it, because I knew that always led to regain. And I wasn't going to put myself through that. So I was determined to I was met with therapists and obesity medicine experts, and I talked through this with my friends and my family, my adult children. And I decided that if I was going to do all that and put all this out there that I was going to share it with people because I knew that people were struggling. So that's how the Easy Way Out, WVIGH, my podcast was born. It's just a 6-episode docuseries going through the deep emotional undercurrents of coping mechanisms, coping with food. Why do we become overweight? Why do we become addicted to food? Why do we turn to food in unhealthy ways? And then why do we, why do we regain the weight? So there's people don't do things that they don't benefit from. So I had to uncover also how was I benefiting from being 337 pounds? So it was a real different sort of conversation than we're hearing a lot. It wasn't, I have to be skinny and skinny at all costs. It was, what is this really worth to me? What can I do to lengthen my life, but also preserve my mental health? How can I live with food and ease this relationship with food so that it's not a miserable relationship for the rest of my life? All of those things. So, and in the process, I've lost 174 pounds.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. I can't, I mean, I'm less than half of what I was before, and I can't even imagine. I mean, carrying around 40 pounds would be harder for me right now. I can't even imagine that I was so strong that I could walk around with 174 extra pounds on my back. And not only did I walk around, but I kicked butt at life. I got out of bed every morning with dreams for myself and took care of my 4 children by myself. And I think that a lot of obese people are doing the same thing, yet society hates on them and hates on us, because I will have the disease of obesity for the rest of my life, no matter what my weight is. And thinks that we're lazy and that it's our fault and that we just don't have willpower. But I think actually it's the opposite. People with obesity have to be super resilient, super strong, super determined, because the world is not made for obese people. And it's hard. Yeah.
That is all very, very true. And it's interesting that you said you will always have the disease of obesity, no matter how much you weigh.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about being addicted to food.
Yes.
So I also believe that food is addictive, that it is an addiction. And yes. And I have a counselor through my bariatric surgeon's office that I'm able to talk to on a regular basis. I talk to her almost monthly. And I forgot where I was going. I totally lost my train of thought.
You believe it's an addiction, and
okay. So my counselor, sorry, is an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. And I always tell her I don't want to diminish what she's accomplished and how, hard it is to overcome alcoholism. But I do feel like it is an addiction to food, and that it's like with alcohol, you can just, just don't drink anymore. Like that, you don't have alcohol in your house. You can remove yourself from situations where there's alcohol, but you can't do that with food. You have to eat. You have to eat. So you're constantly tempted, where you can remove those temptations in the early stages of overcoming drugs and alcohol and things like that. You can't do that with food. So I almost feel like it's more difficult to overcome a food addiction. I've never had to overcome alcoholism or drugs, so I cannot speak about that personally, but I just feel like, for the simple fact that you cannot remove food from your life, that would make it more difficult.
Yeah, not only that, but when let's say you're in recovery from addiction to heroin, you can stop hanging out with the people that you did heroin with. You can stop going to the places that you did heroin in, and you can move from the city where you had all the connections to buy heroin. And that's what people who are recovering from addiction do. They have to remove themselves from those situations. We go to birthday parties, in recovery from food addiction and all of this. And, I almost hate, a lot of people, oh, food is not an addiction, and even professionals will say that. But I've worked in the addiction field for 20 plus years, and I've been addicted to food my whole entire life. My very first memory, one of my first memories, was my 5th birthday. And it was a time where my mother had left me and my brother with my dad, and we were very poor, and he picked me up from school on my birthday. There was no party, no presents, no friends, no decorations, none of that. No like unicorn stuff or whatever you might want when you're 5. What he gave me was a pack, those double cupcakes with the white swirly lines on top.
Mm-hmm. The little Debbie's.
Happy birthday, Joy, and here's your hostess cakes. And by the way, you don't have to share these with your brother. You can eat both of these. And I was thrilled. Like, it sounds like a sad story, but I remember being like, I remember it so clearly, like the feeling in my gut of like, yes, I get to eat these both, these are both for me. And I enjoyed the heck out of those cupcakes. And so I know that something was already going on in my tiny little brain. And also, when I was growing up, my teeth were black. All of my baby teeth were rotten. And that happens when babies have a bottle in their mouth all the time, when they sleep with a bottle in the mouth and the milk is dripping in the mouth. So I think this happened long before I was even eating solid food, to be honest with you. I think science has not caught up with this. But I can guarantee you by my 5th birthday, I already had a jacked up relationship with food, where food was love. And I was getting a lot of dopamine from food that wasn't coming from other places.
Yes.
And
you were conditioned. That sounds like you were conditioned to be that way. This isn't like necessarily a genetic thing, but it's definitely conditioning.
It is genetic. We know that obesity is a genetic disease.
Yeah,
it's a genetic disease. It's a hormonal disorder. We're starting to learn all of this. And it is passed down in families. And they estimate that up to 70% of your weight of how much you're going to weigh is determined by your genetics. Lifestyle impacts and how much you sleep, how much stress you have. Those things impact it, where you live, which city you live in. Like in New Orleans, you're more likely to be overweight than wherever else you might live in the world.
Probably Boulder, Colorado, where I live now.
All right. Food city, the food is delicious. It's all rich and fatty and all that. But I say all that to say that a lot of professionals will buck up against calling it addiction. And I hesitate to call it addiction, not because it isn't, but because there's so much stigma around that word. As an addiction professional, this is one of my jobs. I've been fighting the stigma around addiction to drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, shopping, whatever it is, my whole career. And so to start to understand that obesity involves food addiction, but being sure to keep the shame out of it. There is no place for shame in recovery from addiction. And it's also wrapped up in shame that you have to take it out. We don't want to, with our conversations, add on to the shame. We're trying to, take the shame out of the equation, because what does the fact that my 16-year-old mother gave me too much milk and, things weren't so happy, so sweets were my friend, that doesn't have anything to do with me. That is not a shameful thing. That is how my brain developed. When you start coping at 2 years old, 3 years old, 6 months old, your whole personality is formed around this stuff. It has nothing to do with me, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And as a person that's lost 1 trillion pounds and gained them back, I can tell you that those cravings, your brain is very persistent. And the same goes for people that are addicted to alcohol and other drugs or any processes, that your brain is very persistent. Your brain does not care if you're happy. Your brain does not care if you're a size 6 jeans or size 26 jeans. Your brain only cares about one thing, and that is keeping you alive. It's like, you're alive like this. So we want it to stay like this. We want you to be hyper alert. We want you to be, whatever you're doing, let's keep doing that. And this is how much food you've been eating. And so this is how much food you need. And you're going to eat that amount of food. So when I start cutting back on calories or fat or whatever fad diet was happening, my brain is like, oh, make this girl eat. She's withering away. For your body, it feels like destruction. And so the cravings become so intense and inescapable that you're white knuckling the weight loss process. And the same thing happens for people that are addicted to alcohol or other drugs. There's no difference. People can become addicted to shopping. There's literally no chemical that's entering the body. People
Right.
become addicted to gambling. People are addicted to their phones. I mean, I have a hard time to stop scrolling when I'm sleepy at night. Like, why? It's dopamine.
Right.
Our dopamine systems, our reward systems are screwed up, and we are just now starting to uncover how to fix that. So there's no shame in it, but yes, it's an addiction.
How do we fix it?
So with the easy way out, my big journey was that I was determined to figure out, I'm so sorry. I got two puppies,
Oh, that's okay. My dog is right here too. I tried to get her to go out before we started and she refused. So
same. Yeah, sometimes I don't want to cooperate. Yeah, so I was determined to figure out the mind, the body, and the spirit. So for me, that meant figuring out the emotional part. That's the mind, right? Like, what am I telling myself? What is happening? What am I doing with my feelings? Because, it's interesting, the processes around the addiction. So it is genetic, but also our brains are formed around this relationship with food or whatever the substance is that we're using. And the neurons are firing and all of the, dopamine comes and all that. These things are beyond your control. But at the same time, there are things that are very much in your control, but you can't because your brain is fighting against you. For example, my way of coping with the way that I grew up was to be perfect. I thought as a little tiny girl that I must be very annoying and very ugly. That is how I felt about myself because of the black teeth, because of just my mom was a baby herself and she loved me so much, but did not know. And she was also dealing with chaos, multi-generational trauma on her side that was beyond her control. And she didn't have the patience for kid behavior. So I always thought I was really bad. I must be bad. And so if I am therefore perfect, if I know the right things to say, and if I'm quiet and I'm smiling and I'm never upset with you, and I agree with you and do things for you and anticipate your needs, and I'm hyper alert to every mood that you have, maybe you'll love me. Maybe you'll accept me. Maybe I won't be ugly and annoying anymore. And so my whole personality was formed around that. And when you're a human, you have feelings though. You get upset, you get angry. There are things that you don't like. There are experiences that cause you to cry, to be frustrated, to scream, to yell. And when you can't do those things, what do? When you're 5 years old and you know that crying is going to get you a spanking, or telling your mom that she hurt your feelings might get you pinched or slapped or whatever the case may be for people. But the dessert on the table gives you a lot of dopamine and makes you feel better without ever having to express those feelings. So, and this is because of your genetics and because of the baby bottle thing, like literally your earliest food experiences, right? Like, how do our parents comfort us with food? Do they allow us to cry it out? Let us learn how to cope with our feelings. Let us talk it through with them, have patience for it. Most people who grew up like I did in the 70s, with the Generation X, we weren't. I mean, my experience with my mom was very common. That's how parents were, like children were to be seen and not heard. So my family wasn't particularly special in that way. But so you're coping with food, and then you grow up that way, and the trenches of the neural pathways in your brain are dug so deep in that direction that you're basically powerless against it. And that's why 95% of people with obesity who lose a significant amount of weight without medical intervention gain it back within 5 years. 95%. Yet society, because I've lost 174 pounds and I'm very proud of that, and I tell people that, and it comes up a lot. And people say all the time, I get, oh, did you do it yourself?
How else are you going to do it?
I say, oh, was there another option? I'd say, oh, I absolutely did. Every single pound. Single pound. I've been working really hard. Look at these arms, like I really give it, I let them have that back. Like, you're going to take that back, think about what you just said,
Yeah.
But anyway, so we need medical intervention. Back to how do we fix it?
Okay.
The answer about the body is that we need medical intervention. We can do it. 5% of people can successfully lose their weight when they're obese and keep it off. 5%. So if you want better odds than that, go to see your doctor. And if your doctor is fat phobic and is not giving you answers that are working for you, go find a different one. And then if he's not, keep going, keep advocating for yourself. There's plenty of telehealth companies now who are serving up solutions for this. And I'll talk more about what, but I just want to encourage people who are listening, anybody that's struggling with their weight, with the medications that are out now, there is no reason for anyone who desires to have a healthier relationship with food and to be smaller, to live in a smaller body. There's no reason for them not to be able to do that, except for insurance companies, which is another topic. And I know I keep going down different wormholes. So put a pin in that. We need for the mind part, it's the feelings and that interwoven part about coping with your feelings and dealing with your feelings and being able to express your needs and wants and how you feel without turning to food for the dopamine. Tough to do. Easier if you have on board these newer medications, like people know them as Ozempic. I took Mounjaro. The brand name for mine was tirzepatide. People have heard of these though, these weekly injections that they're working on pill forms. They are extremely successful for people because they turn off what we call food noise. If you've ever been obese, you have experienced food noise. I've never met an obese person who didn't know what that was about. And if you're listening and you don't know what that is, what that feels like is this. You wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, what am I going to have for breakfast? I think I'm going to scramble some eggs. Ooh, I have bagels in there. Oh my God, I'm going to eat both sides of the bagel. I think I'm going to eat both sides of the bagel. And I'm going to have a lot of butter dripping off of that bagel. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. And strawberry jelly. And I can put some scrambled eggs. Okay, great. That's perfect. What am I having for lunch? Let me pack my lunch. I'm going to eat this and that and this. What's in my office? Okay, wait, dinner. I haven't put dinner on yet. Maybe we'll go eat here at this restaurant. Oh, I love the bread there. Oh my God. And they have the best dessert. And then later in the week, I can cook some beans and I'm going to a wedding. And when are they going to cut the cake? How many pieces of cake can I eat? Can I walk across the room and eat a second piece so that nobody knows I had 2 pieces? And you're looking at people, you're talking and you're smiling, but all is going through. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So when you are, at a wedding, for example, you're talking to people, you're looking them in the face, you're smiling, but in your brain, all you can think about is how much longer till they cut the cake. Is there also a groom's cake? Are you going to eat the groom's cake or the bride's cake? Like I said, how can you get more of it than is socially acceptable without someone noticing? That is food noise. And the first time I took Mounjaro, that went away. And I could finally, for the first time in my life, let go of the shame around my weight, because I knew that if a shot could fix that, then it had nothing to do with me, that It was a medical problem, that was a misfiring of my reward system, a misfiring of the hormones that control my hunger, my cravings, my reward, my happy feelings. And so I can't say enough about that. And this conversation can't be had without acknowledging the importance of the medical tools, because I lost 100 pounds in 11 months with Mounjaro. Then I had gastric bypass because I have some acid reflux, and that was putting me at risk for cancer, and doing gastric bypass greatly reduces the risk for cancer moving forward. And I still had a BMI high enough to do it, so I went ahead with it. And so then now I've lost 74 more pounds, and I am so happy to have had both of those tools on board. And no matter how much, and then the spiritual part. So whatever your spiritual inclination is, whatever it is you believe in, even if it's just your own higher self, whatever you look to as the organizer of this situation, that to really double down on that. And for me, it's meditation, it's yoga, it's mindfulness, and that's where I'm at. But so for me, it's a 3-legged stool. The medical portion has to be there. The emotional undercurrents have to be addressed. And then some sort of spirituality, which also is right in line with the 12 steps, which is how we work on addiction also. Addiction to anything. Yes.
Right.
That was a lot. I know I just gave you a whole poo.
No, it's okay. It's fabulous. So question, and do you think that the medications are temporary, or do you think that could be a permanent thing in someone's life?
Gosh, that is such a great question. Such a great question, because all over social media, I have a lot of friends who post about their journeys with this medication. And what you get from people who are not obese is they say, oh, but as soon as you stop taking it, you'll gain all the weight back.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, duh. Like you skinny person, have high blood pressure, and your doctor puts you on medication for that, and then your blood pressure becomes under control. Do you then stop taking the blood pressure medication? Like, no, you don't. You're going to take that forever because you have high blood pressure.
Right.
You're on cholesterol medication. You don't stop taking it as soon as your cholesterol goes under control. Period.
Yes.
But if you have the disease of obesity, you're not going to take these medications and then be done with it, like lose the weight and you're going to be skinny for life. That is not going to be how it works. Now, there are recent studies that are showing that people with tirzepatide, the Mounjaro that I took, and I can't speak to Ozempic because this that I know was specifically studied for Mounjaro, but I'm sure
which is two separate. Mounjaro has two ingredients.
Yes,
glutide and something else, right? So it is different.
Yeah, the semaglutide Ozempic was sort of the first wave. Mounjaro is the second wave. It does the same thing that Ozempic does, and it adds another component. And I am not a medical doctor, and I am not the expert to explain to you what the difference is. Or I just know that there's an additional component that helps. That weight loss is a little bit more significant with Mounjaro than it is with Ozempic, the tirzepatide. I know that for anyone listening too, it's important to note that they're working on getting these medications out in pill form because some people are very afraid of needles and that's a barrier. Although I will say it's a very tiny needle, a very easy process. It's like
I was scared of it until I started, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is no big deal." I can't do it myself, but
okay, yeah, but you're doing it. I'm so proud of you. But yeah, so they are working on pill form of these medications, and I will say this. I think two things. They're doing clinical trials right now with Mounjaro for people with alcoholism.
Okay.
Because what they found, originally these medications were made for people with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people with diabetes started losing a bunch of weight. So everyone else got interested. So then they went into clinical trials and established with the FDA that this medication could be used for the treatment of the disease of obesity. And then what they're starting to see with people all over TikTok telling their stories is that people with alcoholism were able to stop drinking. People who smoke have an easier time stopping smoking because what these drugs do is rework your reward system. And there is nothing like it. But here's the second thing I was going to say. This is not a silver bullet fix all thing. Because this is just my personal experience with the medication. So I have to imagine that some people are going to experience it this way. After a certain amount of time, it just wasn't as effective. You can keep going up in dose on Mounjaro up to 15 milligrams and you max out. And at some point, it's going to lose effectiveness. I think I just am not sure that it's the effectiveness will stay forever. Now, I have seen people lose as much weight as I've lost with these medications. Most people don't. They might lose the top 20% of their extra weight or something, and that'll be about it. Which is why surgery was very handy for me because I had a lot of weight to lose. I still have probably another 15 pounds for me to be where I want to get so that if I bounce back up some, I'll be fine with it. But it's a constant management. And what I'm hopeful for is that, yes, the medication may not work forever for you because your body will build up get used to it or whatever, and your brain's going to figure out a way around it. But these drug companies are so motivated by the big dollar signs. This is working in our favor because they are working double time to figure out what next. So what I would say is take advantage of this if you can. Now, we're going to talk about the health insurance aspect of this and how to get these medications, and it's not always easy. But if you can get them, take them, treat your obesity. If you lose weight and you spend 2 years not obese and you gain some weight back later, that's okay. Those 2 years add to your lifespan.
Right.
This is about our health. This is not about just the way that we look, right? We're not, trying to, I always say my body is for me to use. It is not here for other people's pleasure to look at.
Yeah.
That is
You're not trying to win any bikini contests.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And my body is an instrument, not an ornament. And I am very, very deeply concerned with my body's health and its strength and its balance and its longevity. I am not at all concerned with what Joe up the street thinks when I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is about. So I say I'm going to be hopeful that there's going to be more advancements in the treatment of obesity. And while we have it, we can use this, and hopefully something better will come along as science starts to figure this out. They are headed in the right direction, I'll tell you that. And originally these medications worked, or they started this by recreating the process in our brains that gastric bypass does. Mm-hmm. So they started figuring out the hormone levels and all that because of bariatric patients. So having been through all that, I can tell you that it's worth doing. The time is going to pass whether you lose the weight or not. So don't be afraid. I have lost 174 pounds in 17 months. Those 17 months, I would still be sitting here. I could be sitting here 337 pounds, or I could sit here with you at 163 pounds. The 18 months to 17 months is going to be. So don't ever let anything stop you. Don't let the time something's going to take stop you from doing it.
And it probably doesn't take the amount of time that you think it will either. I think that
right.
They say it's different
forever.
Everybody, everybody reacts differently to the surgery or whatever, has different, and 100% true, but it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's really not.
I'll say that I was underprepared for gastric bypass.
I had sleeve, not bypass,
okay,
to clarify.
But a bit tougher.
Yep.
I was so large, and also the heartburn thing. I can't, if you have a lot of gastric reflux, the sleeve is not going to be right for you.
So I thought that was going to be the case for me at one point. I actually went and had the, I forget what the scan's called. And they were like, I thought I had potentially had a ulcer, or not an ulcer, no, hernia, a hiatal hernia. Thought maybe I had that. It runs in my family. Turns out I didn't. He gave me the choice to do one or the other. And I'm like, well, let's try the sleeve, whatever. And I know that the sleeve doesn't have any, actually, they say people with reflux tend to get worse after having a sleeve. I've not even had to take any medication since I've had this.
That's wonderful.
Might just be the foods I'm eating. That I'm eating better.
The sleeve, 100% you should do the sleeve. Anyone listening, if the sleeve is an option for you, do it. If you have I had very bad heartburn from childhood. My children all have it. So I've had acid exposure my whole life. I couldn't even risk having the sleeve because more acid exposure, I have Barrett's esophagus, which is almost like pre-cancer in your esophagus. I could not risk that.
Right.
In fact, I used the bypass to prevent further acid exposure.
Right.
But the recovery from bypass is harder.
Right.
And it changes the mechanics a bit more. The sleeve just makes your stomach smaller. Bypass, literally, they remove some intestines. They're like reworking the plumbing. It's a more complicated surgery. It's like none of it is that risky anymore. But bypass is a tad riskier than the sleeve.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable going to Mexico for gastric bypass, where a lot of people who can't get it covered by insurance, which is most people, are opting for medical tourism and going to Mexico because it's affordable. And I think in a lot of cases that can be safe to do, but gastric bypass, not so much. I wouldn't have trusted reworking of my plumbing to.
I was lucky mine was covered by insurance.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm lucky to have my GLP-1 medication, my tirzepatide, Mounjaro, covered by insurance. But I have a lot of beef with my insurance companies. I had an angel in my life pay for my surgery, or else I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Well, that's amazing.
It is. Very much.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and get off the subject of the weight loss, but I like how you didn't just focus on obesity or food as the addiction, but all things, it's right up in there with alcohol addiction or gambling addiction or shopping addiction or drug addiction. So I appreciate that because it's so true.
Yeah.
Before we move on, or maybe this is our moving on, obviously you gave some advice. If you have the opportunity to take the medications, do it. If you have the opportunity to get the surgery, do it. 100% agree. Is there any other, what would you tell somebody who is struggling with some sort of an addiction? And really, truly, I imagine they have to really want to change that, right? If they don't really want it, it's probably not going to be as easy. But what advice, what would the starting point be?
Are you talking about any addiction to other things?
Any addiction, yeah, besides food, but
Yeah.
mainly drug, alcohol addiction.
Yeah. So the thing about addiction treatment is that it works whether the person wants it to or not.
Interesting.
Because nobody, rarely, if ever, you hear the odd story of, oh, my dad was an alcoholic. He decided one day he wasn't going to drink anymore, and then he just didn't. That's like the 5% of people with obesity who lose the weight and keep it off.
Right.
It's a miracle when it happens, and I'm so happy for the people who that happens for, but it's not most of us. It's not most of us. So, but mandated treatment works the same as voluntary treatment. And that's a good thing because it is very rare for a person with addiction to wake up one morning and say, I'm so sick of alcohol. I'm gonna check myself into treatment. Everything's going fine. No one's forcing me. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. The same way, when I was at 337 pounds, I was not able to just wake up and be like, I don't think I ever need donuts really ever again. Let me just give that up. Like, no. That's not the way this works. In fact, I haven't given up donuts, by the way. I
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. I believe in food can still be celebration. Food can still be comforting. I think it's all about how we take care of ourselves in other ways. And that's back to the old subject. But so treatment can work. We have a lot of myths around addiction. Like, for example, we often say that a person has to hit rock bottom before they can fix themselves, or get treatment and get help. And it could not be more false. So think about, for me, overachieving people pleaser, nonprofit CEO, single mother of 4, rock bottom for me would be like one night in jail. If a cop picks me up for my bad behavior while I'm drunk, that's it for me. I'm going to rehab. I'm never touching this stuff. I will do whatever it takes. That is rock bottom for Dr. Joy, but for Joe, who gets arrested all the time, that's just Tuesday, who's standing outside of the bar and always getting arrested for disturbing the peace. And, that's not rock bottom at all. What's rock bottom for Joe, who's getting arrested every Tuesday for being a nuisance at the bar? I don't know. Is it getting in a terrible DUI accident and killing someone? Is it, his whole family leaving him? Is it death? For some people who are addicted to substances, death is rock bottom. Death is. And we see this with obesity also. People who, weigh 700 pounds and can't leave their house, their death is coming for them and they know it. And that is rock bottom. So why we're not waiting for people to get to rock bottom before we give them a safety net and lift them up. We want people at any stage of addiction to understand that treatment is helpful and that recovery is possible. And it's not easy, but it's a better way. It's a better way. It's a better life. Yeah. Like if you had told me when I was still 337 pounds, if you'd shown me what I was going to be eating every day back then, if you just said, okay, Joy, you can be a size 6, your dreams are all going to come true. Here's what you're going to eat every day. I would have said, absolutely not. I don't believe in that. I'm not doing that. That is not, I would have had all the answers, all the reasons why that wasn't okay. But because I did all the other work and I took this one step at a time, and I've arrived here on purpose and, intentionally, and I craft what I've eaten, and I love it now. I love what I eat, and I do still enjoy things. And that is kind of like if you tell an alcoholic, That's going to be your last beer that you ever have. That's not going to be motivating for a person who is in active addiction. They need that period of abstinence to get some clarity and develop alternative tools for coping with life. And that's why treatment works, whether a person is leveraged into it by a judge, by their, wife is threatening to divorce you, boss is threatening to fire you, you won't be able to drive anymore because you've gotten too many DWIs. Those things where you get forced into treatment are just as successful. So that's why when you have a loved one who is suffering with addiction, you want to be relentless. Every time you see them, you want to say, hey, how you doing with your drinking? I just wanted to check on you. You just want to always express your love and concern, and you want to keep bringing it up and say, I love you too much to let this slide, and offer them help figuring out where to go for treatment. That you do it with the most love. And it's not this thing where you say, well, yeah, she's got a real serious alcohol problem, but she's going to have to hit rock bottom, or she's not going to be able to get help until she wants it. Yes, like at some point she's going to have to want it, because just like with obesity, I can attest, you're going to have to do the work. Like I have to exercise and I have to watch what I eat. I have to be willing to do that. But it's not so simple as like turning off a switch. There's a whole process to get you there. So that's why it doesn't necessarily take a person. You don't have to have all the motivation on the front end, is what I'm trying to say.
Why then is the failure rate or relapse rates, why are they so high?
Yeah, because it's a chronic relapsing brain disease.
Okay.
That is extremely powerful. And our brains are wired for the substance of choice. And our reward systems get hijacked. So what happens with addiction is, and this is happening a lot with cannabis. Everyone is smoking cannabis all around us. We smell it everywhere we go. People are functioning like this, and they think it's fine, right? They think it's fine. But the same thing is happening in their brains. I just want to put a pin in that. Not that using cannabis is bad. The same way eating birthday cake is not bad, and the same way that having a beer is not necessarily bad. But if you're talking about chronic daily use of any of these things, shopping is not bad. But if you are spending $800 a day and your salary is $800 a month, you're in trouble, So when we get introduced to these substances, we get a dopamine hit from it, and that feels good and we like it. And if we have genetic factors that make that more juiced up, then it's even more seriously like, oh, ping, ping, like that's what our brain was wired for. And we found it, this great reward. And then you add in some environmental factors that make your life not as rewarding. Like, let's say you have situational depression, or let's say you have just lost your job or whatever, but you just also discovered, that cocaine makes you feel really good. That's where the reward is coming. So we start using the substance, we're getting this dopamine hit, and over time, it takes more and more of the substance, more and more of the shopping, more and more of the cannabis, more and more of the beer, whatever it is, the cake, to give you that high. And the reward system begins to take away, not give you the reward for all the healthy and great things in life that we're supposed to get rewards from. Like, for example, when you come home from work and your 2-year-old runs up and gives you a hug, like that gives you the warm fuzzies, or when you finish doing a big load of dishes and your sink is clean, like that feels so good. But if your dopamine system is messed up, your reward system, those things are flat. That does not give you some successful feeling or like the feel goods the way that it should. It might give you a little bit, but it's withholding on the healthy things and just flooding you with dopamine on the things that you're addicted to. And so when you stop doing it, especially if you stop without treatment, you are temporarily white knuckling, holding off the beast. But it is still there. Your brain is still working against you. Your brain is absolutely working against you. And this is where the problem with insurance companies comes in. Because if you want to talk to me about who is at fault for the obesity epidemic, the addiction epidemic, the mental health epidemic, I squarely point the finger at health insurance companies and our politicians who are funded by them. Because health insurance companies have determined, okay, science tells us that treatment for addiction should be at least 90 days. 90 days is the minimum up to a year. If people get a year of treatment, their success rates are phenomenal, so high. If they get 6 months of treatment, their success rates are great. If they get 90 days, good success rates. But I'll ask you, how many days does insurance pay for?
28 days.
28 days. Why? I mean,
cheap.
Cheaper. But what we know is that it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
And when I say it doesn't work, being a person who is in the addiction treatment field, when the addiction professionals are doing their work with the clients who are in addiction, seeds are getting planted, emotional work is being done, and that is never taken away, even with relapse. So another counselor will come along the next round of treatment and water the seed, and it'll grow a little more. And then if they relapse again, same thing. So it's never a waste. Those periods of sobriety give a person, their body, a break from the substance to recover. Just the same way I explained that losing weight, even just for 2 years, or 1 year, is better for your body than not. Now it creates metabolism issues. It's another story, but as far as longevity and health, that gives your body a reprieve. So a period of sobriety is never wasted. That's why dry January is great. They're doing something with February now where it's like light drinking in February. These things are great, giving our body a break from the substance. Like people who are regular cannabis users, I suggest if you don't want to stop, that's fine. Try and smoke only once every 3 days. Or if you're going to smoke for 3 weeks in a row, take a week off every third or fourth week, because your brain needs time to recover so that your reward system doesn't get hijacked, and so that you don't turn into a person that is solely ruled by where is my next hit coming from. Because that happens and it's not because the chemical is so highly addictive, because we know that it's not. But people get addicted to shopping, gambling, sex, all sorts of things that don't have chemically addictive properties, but very addicted to the point where they lose their lives, they lose their families, so we're not going to mince words or bicker about how addictive something is. If you're addicted to it, it's addictive. Period.
Yes.
Yeah. So health insurance companies, right? And they also love to not cover obesity treatment. Yeah. They, just arbitrarily decide that if you're fat, that's your fault and they're not going to fix it. And you know why? Because they're kicking the can down the road, because most of the negative health impacts that come from the disease of obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attacks, all of that comes after you're on Medicare. Once you're old enough to get Medicare, that's when all of those problems kick in. And then the federal government is paying for it, or you've paid for it with your tax dollars through the federal government. So health insurance companies that you're paying while you're in your youth don't care about what happens to you when you hit 65, because they're not going to be paying for it. That
makes so much sense, because I've always wondered that. I've always wondered, like, people are going to be healthier and have less problems. Now, you can still have problems like knee issues or, those types of things. But
think about the people who are taking insulin, who are having knee replacements, who are having heart attacks. They're in their 60s.
They're in their 60s. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, but what I love is that these conversations that we're having a lot is because of this medication, because I cannot tell you that I would be where I'm at right now if it weren't for the medication. And if I had surgery, I'm not sure that would have fixed it. I do feel like all of the things have to be moving together: your emotional health, your physical component, dealing with the disease itself and moving your body and all of that, and your food. But I do think it takes all of it. But for me, the medication was the foundation. And I say, if you have the opportunity, you should do it. I'm not giving medical advice. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. But I know so many people whose lives have been changed by it, that I would just encourage someone to think of this in a new way and to investigate, go on social media, Google, look up those words and let people tell you their stories.
There is so much stigma in the media around it, though. And from just other people, even my counselor that I talked to from my bariatrics office wasn't thrilled with me going on it. She did not think that. Same thing. She's like, as soon as you go off of it, you're just going to fall back into your old habits. And I'm like, well, I'm going to use this opportunity to change those habits while I don't have the noise.
And it does do that. It
Which is
does.
still very difficult, though, to change those habits. And
So hard. And yeah,
yeah,
even with the tools. And that's why one of the things on the podcast when I was considering what weight loss surgery is, I was said, I'm afraid that I'm going to do it and people won't give me credit. Like
yeah,
people on my Facebook feed, my thousands of Facebook friends who I don't even know in real life, they're thinking like, oh, she must have had surgery. Like instead
yeah,
of saying, gosh, she looks amazing. She must feel so good. And I'm so proud of her.
yeah,
Like having your plumbing reworked to save yourself from dying 13 years earlier than you have to, or save yourself from 13 different types of cancer that you're at risk for or higher risk for. Like that's not brave. I mean, that was brave. I could cry right now thinking about how brave I had to
right.
be at 337 pounds to
Yeah,
even take the step toward losing weight. Because the humiliation alone of losing weight and gaining it back is just completely terrible. And then, so I am so proud of and love the 337-pound me so much. She gave me everything. She's the brave one. I've done the work along the way, but she started the whole thing. And I
hmm,
also am not going to ever hate on her because she didn't exercise because it was hard. It
yeah,
hurt. As a
yeah.
person who wears a size 6 jeans now, exercise is way easier. Like skinny people go to the gym all the time and they don't wonder why you don't just do that. Okay, no.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with the same ball of wax at all. At
And
all.
just because you exercise doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose weight. The majority of that is what you eat anyway.
It is absolutely.
And
Now,
that you're gaining health benefits by exercising. You're not losing weight by exercising
no, and that's
alone.
easily explained by saying like, okay, so because I take an evening walk and burn 100 calories, that's like a half a teaspoon of peanut butter or something. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're canceling out the calorie burning pretty easily unless you are working out like maybe addicted to it or working out too much. It's definitely all about that, what you eat for
What you
sure. I
eat.
think they're
100%.
saying now it's about 75, 25 or 20%
I've
of
heard
your
80/20. I've heard 90/10 even. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I think
definitely the
that I
majority of
do.
what you're eating. Yeah.
In fact, because I work so hard at building muscle, I find when I'm exercising, my weight loss slows down a bit. So I'm losing fat, but the
Right.
number on the scale, it doesn't seem to matter whether I exercise or not. Now, my
Yeah.
mental health, the muscles I'm growing, all of that, I can see definitely a difference when I don't do it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't remember which wormhole we were down, but
We were
insurance.
talking about insurance companies and the politicians. And so you said you point the finger squarely at them,
I do.
because they don't care, because they won't cover these things is why. And then the politicians aren't doing anything. Why?
Because, and this is going to get harder for them. So this gives me hope. Just the same reason our politicians do just about everything they do. They do what their donors want them to do. And because health insurance companies are legally allowed to put money into our politics, then what senator who's being paid by Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, just to name, maybe one, um, to keep things as they are, is
Mm-hmm.
going to be the crusader and say, you know what? Let's finally take care of fat people. We're going to finally make sure that fat people can get the health care they deserve. Because not only is like half of the world still in the dark ages and totally fat phobic and hating on fat people, and it's like the last domain where it's okay to make fun of someone about their weight. It is 100% still okay. Even with people who are supposedly like what's the word, like super politically correct, you will hear
Mm-hmm.
them make fun of people for their weight. It's really rampant. So what politician is going to take up that banner,
Right.
fight
Yeah.
against, going to lose the donations, lose the, all that's happening with, his campaigns and all of that, and put himself on the line, like deal with fat phobia in medicine, deal with people who can't quite get it, that it's not our fault that we are overweight. No, it's just it's tough, but because of our connectedness, I mean, right now, you and I are speaking, we just met, we're having this intensely important and deep conversation, very important topics. And because of technology, because of human creativity, we're here in this space. And right now, you can go on TikTok or Instagram and hear very personal stories of what people are going through. And so people are sharing, the word is spreading that obesity is a disease, that the American Medical Association has declared it a disease. that is treatable. It is not a thing to be ashamed of. It's a disease. Your brain is messed up. The way it's sending the signals to tell you what to eat and how much you need to eat is all messed up, and it can be fixed. And as people share that, and as people are losing weight, the ones that are fortunate enough to have access to these medications or to surgery, in spite of insurance not covering obesity, those that are fortunate enough to have it are sharing it enough. And I think the people who don't have access are getting angry enough and saying, hey, what about me? That I think things might change. I think it's going to take us being really loud and purposeful about it. It's, you know, it's inevitable at some point the pendulum will swing, and you know, they're going to have to make it where obesity is covered. I will just add, I'm the CEO at my organization and I choose the healthcare plans, but I only have 20 people in our healthcare group, so only 20 employees. So I asked, I said, I don't care how much it costs, because I have several employees who could benefit from treatment of obesity, including myself. I said, give me the plan that covers bariatric surgery and GLP-1 medications. There's no option for small groups to purchase those plans, period. I didn't care how much it cost. Didn't matter.
Wow.
Have it. So you are only going to find insurance policies that cover the treatment of obesities in very large groups. So if there's 1,000 employees, or if you work for somewhere like Walmart or whatever, because there's so many employees being paid into that particular group, that the per person cost to add on that coverage is low. And so then the benefit, and not having to treat people with insulin, not having to pay for people in the hospital with heart attacks, outweighs, right? Like there's like a balance.
Right.
Where my job, with only, like, let's say 2 of us that are obese, or 3 of us, or however many it is, I'm just using it as an example, the pendulum is a lot lower, right? I'm not expensive. They're gambling that I'm going to stay healthy until Medicare. And there's not enough of us to swing the pendulum.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That blows my mind.
A lot of people say,
even
"Oh, your HR, tell them to cover obesity." Well, if you work for a small employer, the chances are they can't, even if they want to.
Yeah. Right.
Even if the CEO is 337 pounds and desperate for healthcare, like I was.
Well, I thought it was pretty amazing when the reason I was able to get my surgeries, because we were presented with 3 plans and I was reviewing them, and I saw that one said bariatric surgery was paid 100%.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, after your deductible? And the deductible on that plan was $3,000. I didn't spend $3,000. I don't know how, but I did not spend $3,000. And I was like, am I reading this right? I dug deeper into I was just reading the comparison sheets, right? I dug deeper. I was like, is this really what this is saying? And it was the highest priced, option. But I was like, even if I just have that one for a year, I get my surgery and then I can go down to the other plan, which is exactly what I did. I needed to make sure my bariatric follow-ups are going to be covered. Now I have a different job, I've been through 3 different insurances since then. But yeah, I was like, really? This can't be right. And it wasn't it was under 300 employees, over 250, under 300, somewhere in there.
Okay, that's great.
It was.
That, I guess, is a big enough group, or like big enough, how young are the people that work there and that sort of thing. Like, and it's tough out there.
It is tough out there.
I can hold insurance companies accountable.
Right.
And it's, when I called to find out if my bariatric surgery could be covered, which I knew it wasn't because my rep had told me, I, of course, read the riot act to the lady on the phone, and she's not the one, Yeah. But anyway,
who is the one? How do we hold them accountable?
Man, I think we need some leaders to step up who are going to lead campaigns for writing your senators, writing your congressmen, signing, move on, change.org. I know there's one for this right now, a change.org petition.
Okay.
If know
I'll
how
find that and put a link to it in the show notes.
just make noise, if you're brave enough to tell your story, that helps. I think anything that we can do to spread the word that this is a treatable disease and that insurance companies can just opt not to treat it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because anyone that would hear this, like, I think even people that are deeply ingrained in diet culture and fat phobia, which all of us are born into that, right? We all have, I have my own internalized fat phobia, which is something we cover on the podcast too. We talk a lot about that. Even people that are deeply ingrained in that, they probably are nice people. They're not thinking that they don't like fat people or that they're blaming fat people for being fat. If they're listening to our conversation right now, they're saying, yeah, these ladies are right. They should have, everyone would agree. You can't hear what we're saying and disagree with us because it's science and it's the truth. And it's just, you can have opinions about it, but these aren't opinions. These are facts. And so any reasonable person is going to agree if this ever got to the critical masses, right? Where we're voting for people or, where our senators are really getting their feet held to the fire over it. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who would disagree that obesity coverage shouldn't, be there. In fact, most people are like, oh my gosh, they wouldn't cover for your surgery.
Yeah, because they think of it as optional, cosmetic, voluntary.
Isn't that fat phobic? Like, you're telling me that my being 337 pounds, the biggest problem with that is that I don't look like Barbie.
Yeah.
That I can't wear a bikini. Well, I did wear bikinis. I'll have you know, but
I did too.
That other people wouldn't think I could wear bikinis. In fact, I was more confident in a bathing suit than I'm going to be this summer. That is for sure. Because you don't get your body back that you had when you were originally a size whatever you're hoping. That does not happen. You have to learn to love your body. And that's I teach self-love. And that's one of the big things that I teach all the time is that you can't wait to love yourself until you get to some imaginary size. Because when you get there, you're not going to look the way you expect. Your face is going to be more wrinkly. My booty is wrinkly. I used to have a magnificent butt. I was a size 28. My butt was like kabam. I mean, it was a real good one. I loved it. And not kabam. It is no.
Yeah. I'm large chested. I have large breasts. And that was like the one thing I was like, and I don't mind losing some of this. The problem is the skin is still there. They were used to be quite nice actually before. And now they're like, I mean, I can't find a bra that can contain them.
Yeah, well, you just roll them up.
I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 49 years old. There is no part of me that is thinking that I'm going to have some bikini body. I did go see a plastic surgeon because I would like to get the skin removed in some of the parts. And he said something about implants. He's like, well, you're going to need implants because you don't have enough fat in there for me to basically make a boob that is going to be attractive. I said, I don't care about it being attractive for a man or for anyone. I care that I can like run. I can put on a sports bra and not be bouncing around. I can not worry about heat rashes in the summer. I can, put on a strapless thing and like not have to worry about a bra for the first time in my life. Like that's what I care about. I don't care how pretty it is. For me, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there too. And I do want to, have some surgery specifically for that. And some loose skin in some areas too. But just because it's so hard to find a bra that literally will hold them in top, bottom, all the way around. That doesn't look like something my grandmother wore, and I shouldn't have to wear, I should be able to wear the cute bra,
That's right. You worked hard to be able to wear that cute bra.
Exactly.
So the first time I
lost 12 inches alone in my bust.
Wow. I just looked at my measurements today. I have lost 33 inches in my waist.
Wow. I don't even know what my waist is at this point. I lost 85, gained about 25 back, down 10, again,
normal.
with the medications and, trying to lose another 15 to, I never got to where I wanted to be, but that was just a number on a scale. And if I can get back to what I actually got to, I'd be happy. Yeah. I don't need to hit that number on the scale. Yeah, I just don't want to have to buy new clothes again because I had to buy a whole new wardrobe.
I feel that. That would be terrible. That would be a big motivator for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We have, and I'm not cutting you off by any means, but I know we're running way over the 1 hour.
So and this is the other piece. When you're losing weight, focusing on the goal, like this is only going to satisfy me when I am a size X, whatever that is. Because if you would have told me you're going to be a size 6, I would have said, that's all I want. That's all I want to be so happy if I'm a size 6. That's it. Because I never even dreamt of that. I thought 8 was like the smallest possible and 10 would be awesome. Like I was really, I didn't think I could ever be this small, but I don't feel, I have the belly skin and all this. So I have to love myself along the way. You can't wait until some goal comes to be satisfied with your body. Be proud of yourself for taking care of yourself today. Enjoy and fall in love with the process of taking care of yourself. And the same goes for any addiction that you're trying to conquer. Like today, I didn't drink. I am so proud of myself. Do not think about the fact that you relapsed, 6 weeks ago or whatever it is. Today, I took care of myself. That's a major tenet of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I borrow from a lot, is just for today. Just for today, I am not going to drive across town and get a half a dozen donuts just for me and then bring some home and have some more. Just for today, I'm not going to do that. And that is a manageable. And today I'm going to celebrate myself for not doing that. I'm going to love myself and take care of myself. And I love meal prepping. And, when I do yoga, I see, yes, I'm the kind of person that does yoga. Finally, I'm so proud of me. And that's the key. It's not like loving some version of you down the road, because I promise when you get there, there's going to be something new to hate on about yourself. Mm-hmm. Always. Until you love yourself for real, like through and take care of yourself all the way, there's not going to be any way that you could look that's going to change you hating on yourself. As I've heard said, you can't hate yourself to getting skinny. It's not, you could do it, I guess, but it's not going to last.
It's not going to last. Yeah. Right. All right. Well, thank you so very much. You are so I don't even know the words to how to describe it, but I don't know. You're just your knowledge is powerful, and you come across as very and just passionate. That's the word, passionate.
It comes from lived experience.
Yeah,
I have living in a larger body, working with people with addiction, growing up in a home with addiction, losing my grandmother to addiction. It's what I know. It is what I know.
And not food addiction. You're not even talking about food addiction right now, right?
Just being 337 pounds and being an obese body my entire adult life. I know exactly.
You're losing your grandmother to addiction. It was.
No, I'm talking about alcoholism and addiction to pills and choosing to leave this planet because of addiction and other factors of mental health. So this has been my passion and my business. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to email you. I'm going to look you up. Is it just Dr. Joy Bracey on the
social? Oh, that's right. Where people can find me. So if you're looking for my self-love and mindfulness content, that's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the places at DrJoyBracey, Dr. Joy Bracey. And the podcast is anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's also my website, DrJoyBracey. The podcast is The Easy Way Out, WEIGH, with Dr. Joy.
I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Without Regret, the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe. Leave me a review wherever you get your podcast. That would be really awesome, because that's how my podcast is going to get noticed. So that would be a huge help, or share it on your social media would be awesome as well. Thank you so much. This podcast is a Without Regret production, which is produced by me. Artwork is by me. Everything's by me except for that theme song. That's by a guy named Michael Bruguglio. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Without Regret Podcast.
and on Instagram at without_regret_podcast. Thanks again.